going to talk about basically building a fan base and then what you can do with that fan base. And we'll get both Rhea and Ellen to talk a little bit about how they use digital platforms. We're also going to talk about reaching out to media. So Rhea's got a case study of a project she did quite recently with the BBC as well. So as with the previous sessions, I have my 5-step guide to building a fan base. So let's speed through this, and then we'll get both our artists up and we'll have a little conversation about how they have gone about doing this. So, the first thing to say is that we talked earlier about copyright, and the copyright makes money once people start streaming the music, once they start playing the music on the radio, on TV, once people start buying the music, physical discs, and once music's being performed live. All of those things bring in money on the copyright side. But to really make money on the copyright side, we need an audience to stream the music and to buy the music. The live side, we need people to buy the tickets. And as we talked about earlier, live's a really top-heavy sector. Okay, if you're selling 10,000 tickets a show, it's really easy to make money, whereas if you're selling 50 tickets a show, you're going to struggle to break even. Brilliant, thank you. So, in order to get our right side of the business going as an artist, and our live side of the business going as an artist, we need to find an audience. We need to find a fan base. It all begins with this. But if we can find a fan base, and we can connect with that fan base online, maybe there's other ways we can be making money with that audience as well. So, how do we find a fan base? And all of you who are artists in the room, which is a lot of you, will know this is a really hard process. Finding an audience is really hard. And we're sort of in this era in time when there's never been a better time to be an artist and there's never been a worse time to be an artist. There's never been a better time to be an artist because there are all these digital platforms out there that you can use to try and find an audience. So although there are still definitely gatekeepers in the industry, so the playlists on Spotify are still gatekeepers. The TikTok algorithm is a gatekeeper. The Spotify algorithm is a gatekeeper. So there are still gatekeepers in the industry, but it's a lot easier to go out and find an audience today than it was in the pre-digital era, because there are social tools, there are other digital tools, you can have an email list, you can do a website, etc., etc. Brilliant. The problem is, everybody's doing it. So although the tools and the channels now exist, there is an unprecedented competition of other artists trying to do it. So, fan-base building is a very tricky, long-running task. And here's the really important point. For artists starting out in their career, you have to kickstart the fan-base building process yourself. So we've name-checked various music industry business partners today. We've met an agent, we're going to meet a label and a publisher and a manager later on. So as your artist career progresses, you're likely to want to start connecting with business partners in the music industry. And some of those business partners are going to help with the fan-base building process. However, if we were to take the average frontline artist career and break it down into 10 steps, which we've done quite a lot of mapping of careers for a not-for-profit I run called the Pathways into Music Foundation, and we reckon if you were to break down the average artist career into those 10 steps, the traditional music industry, the agent, the manager, the label, the publisher, is only really starting to get involved at around about step 4. And for them to get involved, they want to see that you're making great music, but crucially, you're finding an audience for that music. Not millions and millions of people all over the world, but an initial audience is there. So yes, we're going to hopefully get some industry business partners involved at some point, but we need to get going in this what we call DIY phase. We need to get some music out there, and we need to start the fan-base building process for ourselves. So these business partners are going to start to come on board. Obviously the DIY distributor, TuneCore, DistroKid, Emu Bands, they're going to come on much sooner. They're just selling the service to anybody who wants it. If you know what you're doing, you're going to join the collecting societies pretty early on. But in terms of the focused business partners, not the people who just sell a service and everybody gets the same service, the people who are really focusing on you, the agent is looking for the right shows for you and the right venues and the right festivals, the label who understands you and your music and helps you with the marketing around the release, the manager who understands your business. Those focused business partners are going to start to come in later. So I guess what I'm interested in here is, when it comes to fan-base building, what are we doing in the DIY phase? What are we doing to get the process up and running before those other business partners start to get involved? And in the DIY phase, obviously every artist is different, but But I would say for most DIY phase artists, fan-based building is a combination of live activity and digital activity with lots of collaboration along the way. So let's start off with the live activity first. So obviously, live is ultimately a revenue stream for artists, but as I alluded to earlier, at this early phase, live is as much about finding an audience as it is making money, not least because you're not quite making any money. So how can we use the live experience to find an audience? Now, this is partly putting on your own shows, but actually it's more about playing in places where somebody else's audience is hanging out, who are the right kinds of people for you. So in some cities, in some genres, there are still the good old-fashioned open mic nights. Now this will depend on where you live, and it will depend on the genre of music that you're making, whether or not this opportunity is there. But where the opportunity is there, yes, you know, we're talking probably about finding 3 or 4 people who love your music out of the show. These are small grassroots events, but in certain cities and certain genres, they are still a way to begin this process, to get yourself in front of an audience who haven't come for you, they've come to discover new music. Then are there regular nights? Again, depends on the genre that you're operating in, depends on the city or town where you're based. But are there regular nights, whether they're gig nights, club nights, where you could get a spot? Can you do a support slot on somebody else's show? Can you just do 2 songs as part of a bigger performance? How can I get on stage in front of a genre-relevant audience with somebody else's night, somebody else's show? Guest spots, support slots. You know, are there opportunities for me to play? Now, support slots are really difficult. 2 reasons in the UK why support slots are difficult. Reason number 1 is who decides who the support slot is. So obviously lots of artists tour with 1 support slot all over the country, so that's not an opportunity. Some artists do have different supports around the country, so maybe that's an opportunity. But then the big question is, well, who's the decision maker? Is the artist picking the support? Is the promoter picking the support? Is the agent picking the support? And what you usually find is, whoever you ask, they say it's somebody else's decision. The artist will say the promoter picks the support, the promoter will say the artist, and so on and so forth. But it's kind of a bit of a hustle here. I can see a genre-relevant artist coming into my town. It's worth dropping an email. Who's the promoter on that show? Who do I know at the venue on? Is there any way that I can get in front of those people? The other challenge of support slots in the UK, very much is cultural around the world, is being realistic with support slots. Because actually in the UK, again, this maybe is slightly genre-specific, and it may not be true in certain grassroots venues, but there are plenty of venues and shows where actually people don't show up for the support slot. Okay, you know, there are the shows where if it's doors at 7 and performance at 8, the fans show up at 9, because they know that's when the headline act is going on. So it's being, you know, practical. But, as I said, early on, if you can just get in front of 10 people who are potential fans who enjoy your performance, then that is possibly worth doing, providing you're not spending too much money to get to this show. As things start to build, this is where festivals can be really important. Playing on new band stages at festivals is a great way to get a genre-relevant audience who are not there for you, they're there for the festival and possibly for the headline acts, but they are there to see other music. It's a great opportunity to get in front of potential fans. And I think when you are playing these sorts of shows, this is where I end up giving contrary advice, because on one level it's like take every opportunity you can, but then the other bit of advice is know your worth, because we do know there are parts of the industry that exploit this. But on one level, every opportunity, take it, but having said that, really you should be asking for a fee, and if they're telling you it's promo value, it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, is it, we all know that that's used as an excuse, but maybe it is promo value. It's like, well, what does, you know, are there going to be any industry people in the room? Are there going to be any media people in the room? You know, what will you do for me? Will you put me out on your socials? You know, demonstrate to me, I need 100 quid for this show. If you're telling me it's promo value, demonstrate how I'm getting 100 quid's worth of promo value. So, you know, although there are some people who say never do promo value shows, sometimes it works. So it's trying to figure out. But the opposite is trying to get in front of as many different genre-relevant people as possible to prove that you've got great music and a great performance. But if you connect with potential fans through a live show, that's where digital becomes really important, because you need to take the fan with you. If they see you and they like your performance, they need to be able to connect with you immediately, and they need to be able to connect with you through whichever digital platforms they are using. So this is where social media comes in. Now, here's a generic list of the biggest social media. Which of these should you be on? Now, It might be that all of your fans are going to be on Instagram, so just be on Instagram. That said, how do you know that? And it might be actually the people you're pitching at are more Facebook users. And although we tend to write Facebook off and say, oh, Facebook's old news, it may be that your audience is a Facebook audience and they don't use Instagram. So there's two things there. A is doing some work and asking people what networks do you use, but also maybe initially it's just having a presence on all of them. You don't have to be posting every day on all of them. No one has time to post every day on all of them. But maybe you're posting very regularly on Instagram and TikTok if that's relevant to your audience. Maybe you're just putting a monthly update on Facebook. Maybe you're just using X to put out alerts when tickets are going on sale or new tracks. You need to figure out which of these platforms are right and what you're going to do with them. We're obviously in an era of social media where they're getting political. So some people are coming off these platforms for political reasons, and that's a decision that you have to make. But if all your fans are leaving for political reasons, it doesn't matter, does it? But if you're making a statement for political reasons, but your fans are secretly still using it, then that is a challenge. You're potentially cutting yourself off from these people. So pick the social platforms that are best for you. And then it's connecting the live and the digital. So at the live show, try and find subtle ways to suggest to your audience that they connect with you on these platforms. This is where hip-hop has all of the advantages. Okay? As a genre, hip-hop has the advantage because for most rappers, the persona is, I'm a genius, you want all my stuff, buy it. And if that's your persona, it's really easy to use your shows to be saying, you've got to follow me on TikTok, you've got to follow me, you're not, now do it. Whereas obviously, in the folk genre, it's kind of the antithesis of what you stand for. It's the opposite of your creativity. So are there other ways? Having said that, if you are in the folk genre, you are storytellers through music. So is there a story we can tell which is subtly telling people that they probably want to follow you on Instagram? So it's giving people reasons to connect on these platforms. In terms of what you do with these platforms, it depends on your time, on your audience, on your passion, and certainly on your budget. But obviously, these platforms eat content, so we need to have lots of visual and video content that we can put on these platforms. We're kind of at the point now where, maybe with the likes of Blue Sky, which are trying to sort of reinvent things, but with the big platforms, I would say they're all visual platforms. There's no point posting anything that isn't visual. So there needs to be, at the very least, an image, probably a video. And I think one thing I would say is, obviously as musicians, your art is your music, but that's not enough. So what else can you be creating? And I would say, every time you go into a studio, if that's how you record, every time you go to a show, every time you go to a festival, use it as a content generation exercise. Document it, photograph it, film it, and don't immediately put it all out the next day. Have it stored up, so that when are the months where you literally have nothing to say, you can be saying, I'm just remembering when I was at that festival, here's a video. So you can keep these platforms refreshed. Should you spend money? Maybe, but I would say, if you're going to spend money on these platforms, as you're probably aware, Instagram, Facebook are the platforms where really, if you don't spend money, you're going to struggle to find an audience. Even if you've got 10,000 people following you on these platforms, very few of them will see your content unless you pay those Meta money, Meta owning Facebook and Instagram. That said, I would say of ad spend, I would only ever spend money when you've got something specific to talk about, which is likely a release or especially a show. I would say that shows are the time when it's most value spending money on these platforms. You also need to have some music on the streaming platforms. I would say get something on everything. And even if you actually make money selling CDs of your shows, and nobody streams your music, well, that's great. If you're able to sell CDs of your shows, that's brilliant. Okay, there are so many artists who would love to be in your situation that you have a fan base that will still buy CDs of the shows. Because CDs are a lot cheaper to produce than vinyl, and okay, you've got to carry them around you, that's a bit annoying, but it can be really, if you have that fan base, brilliant. But don't say, therefore, screw Spotify, I'm not going to do streaming. Because if I see you at a show, I'm a Spotify user. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to search for you on Spotify. But maybe I'm an Apple user, maybe I'm a whatever user. So I would say, at the very least, have a few tracks on all of these platforms, and pick, if you're not working with a label, pick a distributor, DIY distributor, that will get your music on those platforms. And then if you do stream, There are now some thresholds you have to pass, annoyingly, but if you do pass those thresholds and you are streaming, they will pass the money back on to you. So, we want to be on the social platforms, we want to be on the streaming platforms. I still think you want to have a website, and you want to have an email list. And I actually say that whatever the genre. Okay, this is not a genre-specific thing. I think as an artist you need a website. It can be a simple page that has lots of buttons that directs people to other places. And I would say have an email list. Now, how active your fans are on email will depend totally on demographics. Some will very much use email. Some people will see email as something that you do at college and work and not something you do for fun. But the power of the email address is from a data perspective, from an upsell perspective, having an email address with permission to email is really valuable. So I would be always trying to get an email address and making sure that people know I have a mailing list. You may be aware earlier this year, TikTok went offline in the US for about 12 hours. Technically, on the 5th of April, unless the change of ownership happens, it's going to be banned again. Trump will almost certainly postpone that. But, point is, social networks can disappear overnight. So you have that email address, because then whatever happens, you can email those people and say, I'm now on this platform. So I'm a massive, massive advocate of email. Use a platform like MailChimp or MailerLite or various others to manage your email list, because there are all sorts of data reasons why you should do that.
Could you just repeat those? MailChimp?
So MailChimp is the one that everybody in the music industry used to use. Because it used to have a free version up to a certain number of emails, and then they had some really flexible pricing. I feel that MailChimp's falling out of favour.
It's very expensive.
Because they've redone their pricing, and now it's quite expensive. And so people are discovering others. So we now use a service called MailerLite, which, as the light of its name suggests, is a slightly stripped-back, cheaper version. But there are others. But it's definitely worth checking out MailChimp, and if you want to save money, it's definitely worth checking out MailerLite. It's also worth having yourself up on at the very least, Linktree, where you have all of your links. And then when you're releasing music, there are the music industry versions of Linktree, companies like Linkfire, that help you do something similar around each of your releases. And I'm also a big advocate of the Bandcamps of this world. Have some way that a fan can spend money with you. If I come to your website today, right there up front, give me a way to spend money with you. Whether you're selling a CD, or you're selling me a membership, or you're selling me a tea towel, it doesn't matter. Because actually, you might have, and I'm not talking about millions of people here, but there might be 40, 50 people out there who just love you and want to support you. And if there's an easy way to give you 20 quid, they'll give you 20 quid. And if they get something nice in return, then that's brilliant. And so obviously, don't print up 1,000 tea towels and hope you're going to sell them. Look for the websites where you upload the artwork and it's print on demand. If you know you're going to sell 100 t-shirts, then it's definitely financially better to print them all up and mail them out yourselves. But early on is look for the websites which will do print on demand to reduce the risk, and then maybe have Bandcamp as the place that glues it all together. High-level artists increasingly use a service called Shopify for their artist store, mainly because it's integrated with Spotify and YouTube, so you can get it into those apps. But you have to pay for Shopify. It's an incredibly powerful e-commerce tool, but I would say at the DIY level, Bandcamp is right. So be looking at all of those other ways of building a connection with your fans. So, early on, we're using live activity and digital activity, and we're connecting them. We're telling our audiences at our shows to join us on digital, and then we're telling our audience on digital to join us at our shows. The final thing to mention is collaboration at this stage. Having collaboration with other creatives, whether those are musicians and songwriters and producers, but they might be video makers, they may be photographers, they may be illustrators, they may be people that make fantastic craft-based products that you can get involved in and sell through your website. Look for collaborations, and there are two reasons why collaborations are key at this stage. One is it reduces the workload, because if you're a video maker and you want to demonstrate your video abilities, and I'm a musician, I want to demonstrate my musician abilities, we can now collaborate. You get music for your project with less effort, I get video for my project, etc., etc. But there's also a marketing value, because your collaborators have audiences. So you promote what they're doing to your audience, they do likewise, and we help and we grow. So collaborations are really important at this stage. Everything I've talked about so far is basically constant. We're constantly gigging, we're constantly doing the digital activity, we're constantly connecting the two. It's an ongoing, slow process, building our audience and building our fan base. Every so often, we're probably going to do a bit more proactive marketing, and usually we do that around the release. So even though we're in this streaming, everything on all the time age, generally speaking, artists are going to put out some new music every so often, and around the release, yes, they're going to carry on gigging, they're going to carry on doing the digital stuff, but that's the moment to try and say, well, is there other things that we can be doing in order, in a relatively short period of time, to escalate the fan base building process? And I would say that this is the moment for influencing the influencers, for reaching out to people who have their own audiences and their own influence. Now, I'm not just using influencers in the TikTok sense of the word. I'm talking about anybody in music that has influence. So all of the traditional music media. The best time to reach out to music media when you've got some new music to talk about. So relevant websites, magazines, radio shows, maybe specialist radio shows, online radio shows, not daytime radio shows. With music TV, it's more actually people doing stuff on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok about new music in certain genres, club DJs, podcasts that talk about music is another one you might want to reach out to. The people who curate playlists on streaming services. With Spotify's own playlists, you're probably just filling out the form in Spotify for Artists. If you're not on Spotify for Artists, you should be. But obviously on Spotify, there's lots of independent playlists, third-party playlists that other people curate, and it's definitely worth trying to figure out who those people are and email them. There are platforms like Submit Hub and Unheard, where you can fill out a form and it pushes your music to lots of playlist curators and bloggers. I hear totally mixed things about those platforms. I hear some people who said it was really good, we found 5 champions for our music by doing it, and now we just contact them directly. I hear other people who say, I paid for the premium package and I got literally nothing back. So I think, you know, it's not guaranteed, but it's worth checking out. Then we do have the influencers on the social platforms, on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. So depending on your genre, they may be relevant to reach out. And then it's thinking of your collaborators as influencers. It's thinking of anybody in the industry who has shown an interest in you and your music. These are champions. So actually, there's a little bit of having almost a B2B email list. You have your email list to go out to fans, but then around release, you have an email that goes out to everybody you've ever worked with, every venue you've played, every promoter who's booked you, everybody who's said that you're brilliant and they love what you're doing. Just a quick message to let you know I've got some new music, this is where you can go and listen to it, I've got a show coming up, etc., etc. And obviously you can do this at any time, but I think the best time to do this is when you have some new music to talk about. Last couple of things before we do some case studies. I've got another data point for you. Most music marketing today is digital marketing, and digital marketing is as much about data as anything else. So there's lots of data available for artists today. Are you able to access all of this data? Email data, website data, Bandcamp data, Spotify data, ticketing data, all different kinds of social data. There's some logos. Why is this data important? Well, it's important for various reasons. It allows us to profile the fan base, it allows us to test campaign effectiveness, it allows us to target the message, it allows us to profile the fan. This testing campaign effectiveness is the really important bit here. This is how digital marketing works. It's trial and error. You post some content on a platform with a call to action and a link, and you push it out, maybe you spend some money with Instagram, and then you let it run for 24 hours, and then you look at the data. And you say, did it work? And the answer is almost certainly no. And this is be honest, that's last point. Be honest when you get bad news. So you post a video onto Instagram, you put some money into Instagram, you're directing people to some new music, you're using a link via Smart Link in order to simplify the process. Smart Link then sends people off to Spotify, Apple, etc. And maybe on Bandcamp you're selling a limited edition vinyl box set. This is the campaign. You push it out on Monday evening on Instagram with a nice little video you've created, a nice little call to action in the writing, and a Smart Link. And then you run the campaign, and then you go back to the data. You know, what interaction did we get on Instagram? Did people watch it? Did they like it? Did they share it? How many people clicked through to our Smart Link? You know, look at the Smart Link data. How many people clicked on the Spotify button? Did we see any uplift in Spotify streams? And did we sell any box sets? And as I say, the answer is probably no. But that doesn't matter, because what you now have is insight. What we do is we rerun the campaign, and we change something, but only one thing. Maybe the content was wrong, maybe the call to action was wrong, maybe the platform was wrong, maybe the day of the week was wrong. Maybe the boxes you ticked on Instagram advertising were wrong. So we changed something, and we rerun the campaign. Did it work? No, it didn't. Okay, well, we changed something else. And then slowly but surely, it's like, oh, do you know what? Wednesday evening, we seem to get more of a reaction. Oh, do you know what? If we film something outside the gig venue just before the show, people seem to engage with that more. Oh, if we take sort of like, you know, touristy snaps when we're playing Brighton of the pier, people seem to like that. And you start to learn, and that's insight. And then you use that in all of your future communications. And this brings us to, well, that's just summarising what I just said. This brings us to the final point, that you might get to the stage where you start to work with a high-level distributor, or a label. And high-level distributors, and especially labels, one of the big things they're bringing to the table is marketing. And the various things that they can do in terms of influencing the influencers. A label will have its own network of people they can reach out to, so that they already have that network in place. But another thing that a label and even a high-level distributor can do, they don't just have data for your activity, they have data for their entire roster. And so a label can say, okay, you're a bit like this artist. I know nobody likes being told they're a bit like this artist, but you're basically a bit like this artist, similar audience, similar countries that you're working in. So we already know what works. We already know that this kind of content on this day of the week on this platform works because we've run it with 6 other artists, and we can use that insight for you. And that's really powerful. It's one of the things a label is bringing to the table. Now, they now want a cut of the money and a cut of your rights, so you have to decide whether or not that's worth giving up. But this is where getting these other business partners involved in your marketing can be really powerful because they just have more data and more reach. And you know, the major record companies, for all we sometimes badmouth them because they're the big evil corporates, but what they have is a huge amount of data. You may be aware that Universal Music, biggest music rights company in the world, is trying to buy Downtown, one of the biggest distributors and label services companies in the world. Why? Well, big reason is Downtown is sitting on a huge amount of data about all the independent artists who use their platforms. If you use CD Baby, Downtown have their data. If you're using a European indie label, very high chance that their music is going through a platform owned by Downtown. So Universal wants that data. Why? Because of all of this. Because the more data you have, the more powerful that becomes. Now, early stage, obviously, until business partners want to be involved on terms that you're happy to be involved with, you're on your own. But you can be doing the basics of this yourself. Grabbing as much data as you can, asking those questions, and learning. Did it work? No, it didn't. Do something different next time. We're going to talk to Ellen and Ria now about their social media stuff and their media stuff. So why don't you guys come up here and we'll do that. But while they're coming up here, anyone got any questions about anything that I've said? Okay, well, yeah, come and take some seats in the front row. Let's do 2 things here. So in a moment we're going to talk to you about your BBC project. But before that, let's start off with the digital stuff and the social media stuff. So I'm just interested to know, of all those social media direct-to-fan digital platforms, which ones you guys use, and crucially, what you do with them. So I got you to answer the first one first. So we've got buttons on the screen for all the different platforms you use. So Ellen, you're using a lot of platforms. So I guess a good question is, are you super active on all of these, or really are you very active on a couple and then the rest you're sort of slightly more passive?
Like a classic millennial, I'm quite Facebook Insta heavy. Probably more Facebook heavy than most people would be my age. But because of one of the bands that I'm in, the demographic of their fan base is like middle-aged men, and they're all on Facebook. And I get so much interaction on Facebook, and sometimes I get more interaction on Facebook than I do across anything. I feel like Instagram is kind of the middle platform where like young people are using it and older people are using it as well. But I feel like Instagram is the one that I put the most effort into the aesthetic because of the grid. I recently deleted all of my Insta posts.
Wow.
And I had them from 2018 up until now. And then the thing that I posted after I deleted everything was my debut single artwork. So it was like a bit of a clear out and
yeah.
like, I'm here now kind of thing.
And do you post video to Instagram? Do you use Reels?
I do use Reels, not as much as I guess I should. I think because with the campaign at the moment I'm so focused on the artwork and stuff, I'm kind of just doing the artwork as the aesthetic that I'm putting, and then when I start moving on with the campaign I'll do some videos, I'll do I made this track, music video, BTS. A lot of it right now is very professional, so it's like a clip from the music video or a clip that I've made with the artwork, like a little animation. Or and then with TikTok, last year when I was touring with ACR, I was supporting them. I did every single day. I did a tour diary, and it took me 4 hours every day to edit all the footage, and I got about 300 views on each one. And I was like, and then I posted a picture of me on the London Tube and it got 5,000 views, and it was just a picture of my hair going like that. And I just feel like there's no, you know, often you'll put loads of effort into something, but I think the thing with TikTok is like how regularly you post.
Were you a TikTok user as in you consumed it?
No. So I find it more difficult because of that, but I think I'm going to have to bite the bullet. I think I'm going to start doing live streams as well, where I'm making music, because that is often the way that you get a lot of traction is live streaming on TikTok. But yeah, Twitter and Blue Sky just, you know, I post a little bit every now and then, repost a little bit every now and then.
Apparently, obviously, Blue Sky is one of the platforms that all the Musk haters are jumping to.
Yeah.
Are you finding there's an audience on there?
It's very quiet at the moment. I think because I'm not following that many people, and not many people are following me, but I'm kind of preempting a Twitter downfall, but I don't know. But I was never a massive Twitter user anyway, so I don't see it as that much of an issue. Instagram is definitely my main focus.
Yeah. Let's just go quickly to the right-hand side. Talk us what you do on Bandcamp.
Bandcamp, I have my single on there, and then I'm going to put the album on there. I have a mailing list as well, so that's like separate to Bandcamp, but I will be sending messages out on Bandcamp.
And what do you use for your mailing list?
MailChimp.
Yeah.
And that's very recent. The first MailChimp email I sent was about last month about my debut single, and I have a sheet of paper at the front of every gig. I've been collecting emails for the past 3 years, and they've all got an email.
Yeah.
So it's about 200 people that I've managed to send an email to just from analog, and then I made a link as well that I posted on my socials. So I'd say 70% of them were just literally people that signed up at gigs.
Yeah.
And you can do that even if you don't have any social media. And then I've just kept them, and I got my mum to put them in a spreadsheet because I hate that kind of thing. And then, yeah.
And just very quickly, with the single you're selling on Bandcamp, is that's physical?
No.
No, so it's download.
But the album is digital.
Okay.
The album is vinyl and CD.
Cool. And so you're pressing that up yourself?
I'm my distributor.
The distributor. We'll talk more about them a little bit later. Okay, let's come to yours. So you have a smaller list of ones where you're super proactive. So maybe just tell us, well, all three, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, are you doing different things on those, or are you pushing similar content out to all of them?
No, so what I do is I have very recently taken social media very seriously because I saw a lot of opportunities happening in live performances, getting to perform stadiums, a lot of traction with BBC introducing, and I always had a very engaged audience, but I wanted to make sure that I was really showing my personality and creating content that felt really authentic. So I take the rule of thumb of I need to create content that I want to see myself, and that way hopefully I'll bring in people who genuinely going to engage with what I'm making. So I make short clips and videos of my everyday life, and I use my content pillars. So there are lots of different aspects of music and live performance that I'm really passionate about, because I write and produce my own music.
So you're recording when you're performing live at shows, or you're recording?
I record everything,
right.
And I split them up into content pillars. So if I'm in writer-producer mode, there's a camera always filming behind me, depending on, it doesn't matter what I catch. And yeah, you have to time manage very carefully because you have to be proficient. I think I would advise being proficient in CapCut, or any music editor.
So these are the apps you can use to edit the video.
That was great.
CapCut's really good. I actually use a lot. I use Final Cut a lot because I cut my music videos, and it's a great platform. And I split my kind of life into my content pillars. So you've got writing, you've got producing, you've got live performance, you've got day-to-day, behind-the-scenes for a big
And
show.
each of those is like, how can I create some video content?
Yeah, but I feel like what you're doing every day is, I find it really exciting because you don't know what's going to engage and what's going to catch what audience. So you never know who you're going to find. And so many of my opportunities have come just from one thing has led to another. And I do a lot of stuff with the lyrics, like behind the lyrics. And I've seen different things work on different platforms.
And that's where you talk about the lyrics and explain what they
so
Tell the story of the song.
Exactly. So I actually made a whole campaign around the songs that I released last year. I was like, how do I get radio attention, right? So I created a story around each release. So I was like, let me release a song that's a chapter of a book. So take a page write about my experiences. But in order to engage both social media and radio and PR, each song I released was based on a very well-known saying or aphorism. So like one of them was permission. It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. Hooks around that. Then another one was eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. And I kind of created this story of a fictional character who's gone through love, heartbreak, wants revenge because she's been wronged, and then, you know, comes into her own. And then my latest release is Energy, which is about taking your time and energy into your own hands, and being very selective with who you give that to. And that worked a treat, because every time I go, if BBC Introducing would like call me that they'd come to do an interview, they'd be like, so what happens next? And I'd be like, call me next month, find out. So that was a great thing that worked in radio PR. I got a lot of coverage with Rolling Stone as well, just off the basis of that idea. And then on socials, it really connected with audiences, because on there, like on TikTok, it was really, really engaging for people to see. I'd just do little skits behind, okay, this specific lyric came from this. Or a lot of the songs I write are to do with TV and movies, because I love cinema. And that's why I'm really looking forward to this next chapter of getting into sync and licensing and getting into the music licensing world. But I would take a scene from a show, for instance, this was like the pinnacle scene of Grey's Anatomy, and I made a whole series around, oh, well, I put my song Eye for an Eye because it's all about getting revenge behind the show, and don't argue with me, this is the best scene in TV history. And you know, you can see all the engagement, because people are like, no, it's not, you've not, and that's what you want to create conversation, right? So I love the social media aspect of it.
So quickly, with TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, are you creating these videos and pushing them onto all TikTok,
Yes.
Reels and Shorts?
So I'll make two styles of content. YouTube is separate, because YouTube is obviously split into YouTube and YouTube Shorts. So
Yeah.
long form and short form content. So my long form content is all my music videos, it's all the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
When I did Heading the Stadium with BBC Introducing, there's a whole behind the scenes video of Get Ready With Me.
So the long form stuff is on
It's
your
on
YouTube channel.
Then people who, I split that same long form content up into short form content. So that's distributed. The same thing will go to Shorts, Instagram, and Facebook, and TikTok, all at the same time. So at the moment I'm posting once every 2 days, but things have been very hectic, so the last 3 days have been MIA, but we're back on. I try and post once a day or once every other day, and repurpose one long form video. You can get at least, like, not exaggerating, about 40 to 50 pieces of content if you work effectively, which is what I'm doing at the moment. So that all goes across all the short form platforms, and then I try and push different, I use ChatGPT a lot to help with market research, so you can get a lot from hashtags, you can get a lot of information on, you know, what keywords should be using to get the most
Interesting. So
traction.
you basically, ChatGPT is your marketing
Oh,
consultant.
100%, and it really works. I've seen a difference in the engagement. And on TikTok, it's amazing because the artists, I recently posted something getting ready for the BBC One show. So I did a whole series, because I was like, this is a huge opportunity in my career. How do I monopolize it to the best of my capability? And I was like, well, let me do like a 13-day series where I take people behind what it takes to do a performance like this and what the artist goes through to put on a show like this. And that did really well on TikTok. And one of them was like a kind of a laugh at, I can't believe an artist has to be their own PR agent, their own marketing agency, their own live performer, their own makeup artist, their own stylist. There's like a list of like 30 things that I'm doing on a day-to-day. Your editor, people will know here, you're your own producer, you're your own marketing engineer, you're everything in one house, you're a business, right? So it was just a poke fun at that video, and it got so much engagement. I think there were about 600 comments from artists everywhere around the world. And funnily enough, the makeup artist who ended up doing my makeup for BBC One, she was in the comment section on that video. She was like, I don't know, she didn't know anything about this, that I booked of this show because it was on a couple of weeks ago. She just messaged me that if you have anything coming up, I would love to be involved. And that, you know, you never know what will come of what, so yeah.
You've segued us into something, so let's quickly talk about this other exciting project and then we'll wrap up this section. But obviously, we talk about digital platforms, social media is really, really important, but then at various points, reaching out to media who still have a really important role to play in all of this. So you alluded to it in talking about it from a social media perspective, but I guess what's really exciting here is, sometimes it feels as independent artists that the labels have all the media relationships. It's really hard as independent artists to get the sort of the more traditional media opportunities, but you did. how this whole project.
So this actually came about because, and this is why I emphasize, you don't know who's watching and when. And I put 100% of anything, like, of myself into any opportunity that I get, because I've seen in my career, somebody's in the crowd, somebody sees it, somebody likes it, and then huge things follow from that. I booked Headingley Stadium just off of a BBC interview. I went there to do an interview on a single I was doing. She really liked the track, she put it forward, and it's quite a rigorous.
So that was BBC introducing.
That was a different project. That was BBC introducing Headingley Stadium, but that kind of led on to, I got a lot of traction with youth music because they funded my last projects, and youth music is a fantastic organisation. I recommend everybody get involved with them. But once they funded my artist, they put me on a want-to-watch list in 2024.
So this is youth music's one to watch.
This was youth music's want-to-watch, and from there,
and you'd already done the BBC introducing thing
so I'd
before
done
that.
the introducing thing before that, and the introducing, again, it just happened because I made sure I carried little press kits, printed press kits, and I gave all the BBC producers my press kit. One of them really liked it, and then when you book headline shows with BBC introducing, there's actually a lot of steps that happen before you book the gig behind the scenes. So the producers will, each producer from each region will bring 5 artists that they believe work for that slot, and then those kind of all regional artists are broken down, and then the top however many 5, 6 artists will be put onto the lineup. So you just need to put your hat into the ring. I think that's the importance I would stress as an independent artist. So once I booked the Headingley Stadium and the youth music kind of took notice, they gave me funding, they put me on a want-to-watch list, and then from that, ITV saw that, because they check these lists regularly. I didn't know the importance of that list at the time. I was just grateful to have been seen for my music and my writing. From that, ITV introducing, they did a Granada introducing series where Elaine Wilcox kind of showcases emerging talent. So that was just an interview, it wasn't a performance, and it was about 10.
And that just went out in the Northwest.
No, what happened?
Oh, is that national?
Yeah, it was national, and it was fantastic exposure because not only was it live on the news, they did a whole piece. And for me, I couldn't have asked for a better. I used that as a promotional material again because I was like, what she said, she compared the songwriting to Taylor Swift again, tying in all of that kind of storyline. She instantly picked up on it and mentioned it herself and said, future superstar, and all these were great for social media. The reaction posts got 200,000 views just from like reacting to seeing myself on TV.
Reacting to yourself.
Yeah, so it all goes full circle. Like, everything's connected, and I'm always thinking, how do I make this into content? Like anything I do, anything I've got, even now that's filming, and this will be content. So you'll see this on Instagram later on today. But then after I did the Granada introducing, and the write-up went up, they did a whole write-up that went on their website, on the social platforms, TikTok, Instagram, everywhere, and that was really valuable to me because producers from BBC One, which is totally different to BBC introducing, and that's like a live Sunday morning show, which is called BBC One Sunday Morning Live, and a producer reached out to me in Zema that we'd like you to perform because we saw you on the ITV Granada introducing and we think it's perfect. And then the whole preparation process for that, again, trying to make use of that opportunity to the maximum, like filming all of the behind the scenes, making sure the performance was really abstract because I wanted to highlight that I produce and write my music at this stage in my career. I'm really excited to work with new artists and I'm coming to that stage in my career now where I'm going to be working with producers, etc. But up until now, I never wanted to wait for opportunities, so I just write these. So the stuff that I was performing on the show, I decided to opt for a live backing track for that reason because I was like, I'd like people to know, and I mentioned it in the interview.
Yes, but and you were very clear. I produced the track
yes,
for me.
Totally, totally. And they did too. They wanted to highlight the same thing because I'd love to inspire a girl behind the screen to pick up Pro Tools or to start editing or to follow her dreams in any way. And they really resonated with that. So that's kind of, I think that's really important as well as artists is to know what your kind of core principles, what you stand for, what you represent, and just knowing your brand value really clearly because it really helps in everything that you do. If there's a clear way that you can distinguish yourself, it helps both media, press, PR, and you as a business. Yeah.
No, that's a really good wrap-up. I think we can break music marketing down into the digital stuff, reaching out to the media stuff, the live activity stuff, the collaboration stuff, but crucially, it's all glued together. Everything sort of checks into everything else. And as you say, yes, and I think this really, see that BBC Introducing where it all began. BBC Introducing is a great scheme, they have their program, fewer than they used to, but they have their local shows, BBC Introducing shows, it's brilliant, but just because you get played on the BBC Introducing show, doesn't mean anything. So it's what can you do with that? So what can you do that behind the scenes, and using that as a way into the BBC, into network, and to really try and get contacts with the BBC. But what can you do with that bit of exposure to then get the next bit of exposure, and to then get the social media content that sort of keeps the feeds refreshed. I'm very aware of time, so we're really bad at scheduling today. So I think we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back with our final panel. So we've name-checked lots of business partners during the day. We've talked about labels, we've talked about the publishers, we've talked about managers. So in the final session, we're going to have some guests up on stage talking about the role different business partners play. Plus, we'll talk a little bit about the distributors that you work with and the role that they play as well. So we'll take a 5-minute, very quick comfort break, and then we'll be back for the final little session. Thank you very much.